This was just put out by the Israeli embassy to the United States.
Long live the Intifada! Intifada, Intifada! Long live the Intifada!
Hello, Rabbi Litwak.
Wow. Hello.
Yeah, pretty powerful, huh?
Yeah.
That just came out. I was scrolling through Twitter about an hour ago, and I couldn't help but think that that's really, it just hits on the nose what we wanted to talk a little bit about today, which is, of course, what has been happening over the past few weeks on college campuses, past few months on college campuses, but specifically how the presidents addressed that, the presidents of some of those universities, and the reaction to it. Now, we've talked about free speech before.
About a year ago, we it was our topic almost exactly a year ago.
So
Uh,
why bother bringing it up again? I mean, why is this important to you?
okay, well, let's be clear. Judaism believes in free speech. Um, Ibn Ezra, Moses Ibn Ezra, says when a person refrains from speech, ideas die, the soul stops, the senses deteriorate. Um, we believe Judaism is um, wholly supportive, that's WHOLLY, wholly supportive of the idea of differences of opinions. And we see that throughout our tradition. Um, our problem is that where is the limit to that? And how do we address um, what we are seeing on our college campuses, and even what we're seeing on our streets, but specifically what we're seeing on our college campuses? Because
Yeah.
I think,
So that video was from Columbia University, which sorry, which ironically was not one of the universities that was represented in on the Capitol. Um, and you and I were talking about this, and you identified sort of three different
yeah,
categories into which you can put speech as we try and understand, as for a faith that believes wholeheartedly in free speech, are there limits? Can you talk us
right.
through a little bit about how to categorize and think about this?
Sure. So I will give credit where credit is due. As we say, B'Shem Omro, in the name of my teacher, Yehuda Kurtzer, from the Shalom Hartman Institute. In a recent podcast, he, I think, gave a helpful framing for the approach of the question of freedom of speech. And what his hypothesis was is that we need to differentiate between situations that make us unsafe and those that make us uncomfortable. And I think that that's actually, if we look at it, it becomes hard to parse out. Okay? Is painting a swastika something that we would call physical intimidation? Is someone telling a group that all Jews should be gassed? Are posters being ripped down? Right? Where are those expressions of belief, freedom of speech, okay? And where do those cross the line. And there's an even greater challenge. I think what is unsafe speech. I think we can generally pick those out. Physical intimidation, threats of physical intimidation, is pretty clear. The question becomes when it becomes what he says uncomfortable. Okay, and how do we? And he actually separates out the uncomfortable sort of category into two. And his thinking is that within the category of uncomfortable, there are situations that are unproductively uncomfortable, and things that are productively uncomfortable. What is the purpose of a university? It is to challenge us to think, to broaden us, to look at alternatives, to rigorously delve into a subject and discover that what our thesis was may not actually hold water. And so universities should be places where we create productive discomfort, okay? Where we have debates about challenging issues, and we are forced to confront our thinking. Where it becomes unproductive is in situations like rallies where all that's happening is shouting and screaming and chanting that doesn't really change anybody's mind, right? And where I'm clear about what is unsafe versus what is productively uncomfortable, where it becomes challenging is the difference between productively uncomfortable and unproductively uncomfortable, and more so what becomes what is unproductively uncomfortable and what is unsafe.
Okay, a couple of
I know
thoughts.
that's hard. I think that distinctions and what Dr. Kurtzer said is we need these distinctions.
Right.
Because if we don't, then we tend to look at all of these situations in the same way, through the same lens, and we react to them in the same way, and that becomes problematic because if we're having a serious debate and sharing ideas, is that really making somebody unsafe? Right?
Right. So,
Maybe not.
So I want to pick up on that unsafe piece because that's where I get tripped up. Because I think that feeling unsafe or targeted has so many people feel unsafe and targeted for so many reasons that in some ways it feels like it's lost its import. And so there are lots of people who I may say something offensive and someone will say to me, that makes me feel unsafe. Well, I'm not actually threatening them physically. I may be saying something mean. That I'm not justifying the talk. But I think that even feeling unsafe, maybe we need to drill down a little bit because, for example, and I don't know this for a fact, but I'd like to think that a whole bunch of people that are screaming intifada or from the river to the sea, I'd like to think that they're actually just really stupid and they don't know what they're saying.
And it's clear that in a lot of ways, in a lot of situations, that is the case.
And then
Right?
if that's the case, then I'm not so worried. Like, they're stupid people. Forgive me for saying stupid, but they're stupid people, you know?
Right.
I don't need to feel afraid if I know that.
I agree with that. And to wave the "I'm unsafe" flag every time somebody says something that is offensive to me, it is problematic.
Hmm.
And I agree that the word "safe" becomes meaningless in those situations. Um, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. Who was it back in the 80s, 90s? I know pornography when I see it,
Oh,
uh,
right.
but I can't
Right.
define it.
Right.
Okay. Uh, and yet, I think that I think, and here's where I'm struggling, is I think that universities, which are generally by definition liberal, right, in that they want the ideas, have created an orthodoxy, right, and I say that advisedly, an orthodoxy, a correct idea, right, orthodoxy, around um, liberal ideas. And that means that there is no opportunity for those who don't have different ideas. Right? I, I think that in many ways, colleges and universities have betrayed their own missions. Right? Liberal institutions have, in effect, become illiberal because there is that orthodoxy of views, a rigidity, a monolithic ideas, and I will openly on camera say I believe in pro-life, right? But I can, right, understand that there are people who are avowedly conservative pro-life, right? And while I wholeheartedly disagree, I can respect that view. And I think that there are many institutions where that wouldn't be the case. And I think even more so, right, there seems to be a double standard of institutions who have worked for 20 years to address the safety of women students in what was often defined as a rape culture, right? And yet there's no thinking, right? And this is not every institution, but somehow it becomes problematic when Jews are being threatened. Well, now it's context. Now it's freedom of speech, and only when there is physical harm is it called out.
Hmm. So
And that's
would you
trouble.
are so would you argue? So I heard Alan Dershowitz the other day argue that he doesn't want to shut down the protests or the speech or calling for jihad. He wants to ensure that the other side, that all sides have the same access to that speech and those platforms. So would you agree with him that as long as institutions allowed for Jewish organizations, for or Israeli organizations to also be loud and proud, right? And maybe even obnoxiously so, Does that level the playing? Does that allow it to remain a liberal organization?
Yes, I think so. I think in colleges, what we're seeing is it feels like there's a clear anti-Israel team.
Right.
There might even be a center. There's no large protests that are happening on college campuses that are pro-Israel. And there's where I think part of the problem maybe is there's a minority opinion, right? And simply because they can't amass, all right, the large protests, right, that they're either discounted or not allowed. But again, I want to go back to the protests. I think we would be, I think you and I would be equally ashamed if there was huge protests in Israel calling for death to the Arabs.
Absolutely.
Okay? And we've had that.
Yeah.
I mean, we
And when we've been ashamed and we've called it
right,
out. Yeah.
right. Okay? I think that is equally problematic. Okay? I think university institutions, right, need to work to create opportunities for learning, okay, rather than just being places of megaphones.
So okay, so what you've done is you've really reframed the question. The whole it's not the question is no longer should this be allowed or not. The question now is this helpful or not? Is this productive or not? And if it's not productive, especially on a college campus, then just stop. It's not productive.
Yes, I think it's a little hard for institutions to vet every speech if there's going to be a rally. I understand the challenge of that. Where I want to, I guess I want to be clear is I'm not just making the distinction between what is productive or unproductive. I do think that there is and has to be space for times when there is physical violence or threats of physical violence, and if the speech is endangers my safety, then and we can figure out what safety is.
Right. So let's talk about that for just a second, because you said before about rallying in Israel, kill all the Muslims. If God forbid a rally like that were to happen on a college campus, it would be shut down in a heartbeat. I feel.
And I'm wondering whether that's a double whether that
no, that's exactly my point. That's exactly my point. Is that the other side of this coin is that this isn't just an issue of free speech. This is an issue of anti-Semitism. This is an issue of, for some reason, even if the people are stupid, when people call for genocide, when people call for river to the sea, somehow it's okay. It's because they're Jews. It's an embarrassing double standard. It's so yes, on the one hand there is the free speech question. On the other hand, there's the anti-Semitism question, which is also about as real as it's ever been in the United States of America. You and I both just came back from Israel, and I don't want to speak for you. I felt safer there than I feel here.
Well, yeah, I did.
How is that as a Jew, I don't feel safe in America, in part because of this, all of this?
Yeah, I think that's where the Jewish community has felt betrayed.
Mm.
Certainly our students, okay, where we thought we were accepted, and that's not the case anymore.
I have a dear Israeli friend who she's lived in America for many, many years. And she and I were having dinner the other day, and she said to me, I've learned two things in the past 2 months. She said, number one, these are her words, and we can parse them. She said, the Arabs want to kill us. Of course, I don't subscribe to that Bichlal idea, but
Mhm.
put that aside. And the second thing she said is, and everyone hates us. Everyone hates us. Which, and I couldn't say, no, that's not true. Like, I couldn't say that because, and here's where what you just said, the betrayal, that's such an important word. It's really resonating with me. I'm okay. I can live with kids on college campuses and even adults marching through the streets saying Jews will not replace. Like, we can deal with that. It's when the institutions don't call that out for what it is.
Right.
That's I think where I get stuck and where I really get worried. I feel the same way about the United Nations and what's going. As an institution, I'm okay if there are individual countries or people, but for that institution to not be able to speak truth to power is infuriating.
And then the question becomes, okay, what do our students do?
Right.
And
Well,
look,
what should they do? What should they do?
you have three options. Okay, you either exit the system totally, right? You don't go to those institutions, and I can tell you, right, as somebody who has children just out of college, in college, I have a lot of friends in that sort of strata of their life. Okay, taking a second look at where their kids are thinking about going to college, kids thinking about transferring. Okay? Yes, that's one option. Right? Just to exit the system totally. Right? The second is to develop a thick skin and live within it. Right? Even though there is a sense that they don't belong.
Right.
They're not accepted. Right? Put your head down and right, live within it. Right? And then the third, right, which is, I think, I'll say the most productive, right, is embrace this is Yehuda Kurtzer's thought, is embrace the safetyism that's afforded to other groups, right, ethnicities, right, LGBTQ, right, and then we have to work to insist that the universities apply the same standards for Jews.
Can I ask you a question? When it comes to,
Right.
please. So it's going to take more than you and I and a podcast to convince universities to change. What are your thoughts on that? The large funder, yeah. That I have no idea who he is. I don't know if he's Jewish or not, but he apparently said to the University of Pennsylvania, $100 million if you don't oust the president and the chair of the board. Is that an effective tool, do you think?
I think that is I think it is, yes, because I don't have the facts at my fingertips, right? But the amount of international funding that is happening to large institutions like Harvard, right, plays a role in this. There's no question.
When you say what do you mean by international funding? Do you mean from Arab countries?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so if it's playing a part in the permissiveness of this kind of Narishkeit, right, it can play a role in getting rid of it.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think that that's the only thing. I think that there has to be a sea change in how we look at our universities, and there's where I don't know how to how to tackle that problem.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, are we getting places, institutions like AJC and ADL to do a massive amount of work, not just in communities, but in universities, right? Because we have, it's hard to believe, but within universities, there are departments that are anti-Semitic,
Sure.
certainly anti-Zionist, right? And then there are others that are not.
Yeah.
Right? And
I don't know about you. As I watch this happen, I've lived such a shelter. I went to Brandeis. I've lived such a sheltered life, because Brandeis is
yeah.
at least back when I was there, it was just squarely in the Jewish.
Look, I went to the University of California at Santa Barbara, right? And when I was going there in the mid '80s, right, we didn't have this. And keep in mind, I was in Jerusalem junior year abroad during the first Intifada.
Oh wow!
Right? But you didn't. There weren't demonstrations in the streets. There weren't demonstrations on campus. Okay, and yet over the decades, I no longer give to my university. I no longer give to my alma mater and to the University of California system, right, because of what they have put out as a liberal institution, being not supportive to the Jewish community and not supportive of anything regarding Israel.
Yeah, that's incredibly telling. That change, that shift from when we were in college to now.
For sure.
Yeah, really powerful.
And it feels that there's been a shift just
Much
in the
more
last
recently. Yes.
10 years.
Yeah.
I've said this a number of times. I don't. In 28 years as a rabbi, I've never spoken about anti-Semitism more than in the last 2 years.
Which again maybe reminds us that the focus on free speech is important, but we can't have that discussion in a vacuum. We have to also acknowledge the role that anti-Semitism is playing in this.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for the conversation. Really appreciate it.
We need a little lighter conversation.
I know we really do. It's very hard to find light, fun. It's Hanukkah. I don't know. I should have worn my hat or something. Or you have cool socks. I don't know. There we go.
I got my menorah ready to be lit for at our meeting tonight.
Wait, do I have mine? Hold on a second. Do I have a... No, mine isn't working.
Oh well.
Oh,
don't worry.
Sorry,
Mine.
I have a digital one of my. It's not working. All right, friends, we're wishing you a day of light.
Last night of Hanukkah, last
right.
day of Hanukkah.
Please God, we should light up all of our lives and our homes and our world and
Be a light.
be a light. Be a light. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
See you later.